everybody.
All right, well, I'll just start out a little bit about Parsons and who we are. I'm Dave Karski. I'm a vice president and one of the owners of Parsons Electric. I head up the construction division in Minneapolis and in Phoenix. This is Jay Searson. He's in our estimating.
I'm a senior estimator. I've been with Parsons for 5.5 years now. Done with a graduate through the construction program back in 2000. So I've been doing this for 10 years. Senior estimator. So I guess I'll take off with the estimating portion of this. So electrical estimating, it's a system to establish the cost of material and labor required to complete work for any given electrical project. A lot of us will do software, we'll do pen and paper, things like that. So what makes a good estimator? Attention to detail. It's extremely important that you have attention to detail when you go through this. You go through specs, you go through narratives. You might not have all the information for the job, so it's based on what your knowledge of that type of a project is going to need. Being organized kind of goes with the attention to detail. Make sure your paperwork is in order, your bid forms are filled out, you know who to talk to, you know what questions are asked, you've gone through all the addendums, gone through the plans, and not just the electrical portion of the plans. We like to bury things on architectural drawings, reflected ceiling plans, mechanical drawings, everything. Reading comprehension, you're all here, so you know how to read. Being thorough. I mean, these all obviously go together, but being thorough, we have a lot of times where we have a process in place now that we have a spreadsheet that we can do averages out of, and we can see how many receptacles we have a square foot, and how many lights we have a square foot, and taking how much conduit is per each receptacle, and how much per light, and how many wires are in that conduit. Just because over time you start to gain a knowledge of, well, a hospital should have 20-25 feet of conduit for every light fixture, or an office should have 12 feet of conduit for every light fixture, type of things like that.
I think, what that does for us is it allows us to check and do a quick scan when we're finishing up an estimate. We'll cross-check some of these historical numbers with the estimate itself, and then we can, because mistakes happen, and you don't want them to happen either way. When we talk about being thorough and attention to detail and all this, it's really the estimating portion isn't to be low, it's to be accurate. We can, at the end of the day, when we get ready to turn in our bid, our real differences should be how much our markup is, not how accurate our estimate is as to where we sit in the bid. And a lot of times there's going to be the other bidders are going to have mistakes. They're going to get lower you, and then they're going to get the job. That's the consistency of knowing where your costs are is what really counts in estimating.
Ability to conceptualize, like I said, you might not have all of the information. You may just get 6 pieces of paper, and they say, well, we want a 160,000 square foot data center. Well, okay. Well, what do you want, man? Do you want N+1, or do we want a hospital? Do you want a low-end hospital? Do you want a high-end hospital? So you need to know where to ask those questions and who to look at, and then think back on what you've done in the past, or feed off of other people that you work with on, this is what they want. I haven't really done this before. Can you help me out? That ties right into experience. You might not have all the experience. I don't know everything. I've been doing it for 10 years. But it's use those tools that are available to you. I go to our design group quite a bit. Just I have enough stuff on my plate to try and do, so I'll have them do one lines for me or do a lighting layout for me, just so I can kind of move on and focus on my day. Training. NECA has a 3-day, I think, estimating course. That's what I did when I came out of the construction program and I went to work for a contractor. They just kind of threw me in that for a few days. We do extensive training at Parsons. We hire a project engineer or even a new project manager that might not know our software that we use. We take them and we kind of run them through the estimating department. It could be 3 days, it could be 8 weeks. But that way they get that experience of how Parsons does things, and I hope that all other employers do the same thing. Dave, you want to talk about career path?
you know, career paths, and I'm sure a lot of you think about the different things you're going to do when you leave school and how you work through the different paths, you know, and this kind of shows how Parsons works, and it may be similar to others, you know, but if we get a student, they'll usually come into our design department. Sometimes they come into estimating, but we prefer, if things work out, that they get some design experience, because really the best estimators and project managers understand design. You know, management principles are real important, but it's important to understand electricity and design. You're going to be working on estimates with other engineers' plans, and the best project manager is going to understand solutions and ways of doing things better than the engineer. And that's when you bring value to a project, and that's when they hire you. So anyway, we bring them in. We sometimes move them into as a project coordinator, and that would be probably on a job site for some amount of time. They might be producing some installation drawings. For instance, on hospitals, we tend to draw up a patient room and put a lot more detail on it. We will show all the elevations, and we'll have all the different systems and even the catalog cuts of the fixtures into a book, so that when the electrician comes into that patient room, he's got all the information in one place, so he doesn't have to page through the architectural and everybody. Good question?
What is the software you guys primarily use
Accubid. Accubid.
for design? You said? Yeah.
Or for design.
For design.
Well, we're moving into Revit. But we do a lot of 3D modeling as a coordinator too. A lot of these things, like a data center work, sometimes we'll have 8 layers of conduit underneath the slab, and there'll be missing rain leaders, and it takes an awful lot of planning to get all this in between multiple generators, multiple UPS systems, etc. So that's a project coordinator, and then designer is another step, and then you go from being a designer, assistant designer, and until you become the project designer or a senior designer with the team, and then you'll be in charge of the design on projects. We do both design build and design assist, and of course plan spec work. So our designers usually get involved with just the design build side. When you move up from that, as I said, senior designer and project designer, but also we move into project engineer, which again is on site, and that's another path. You'll see that there's a lot of different paths, but usually if someone goes to be a project engineer, that's a position where you're going to work with a project manager, and you're probably going to be on site, at a construction project. You might be there for 6 to 8 months, maybe a year, and it's going to involve doing an awful lot of submittals, an awful lot of management of documents, and that can be everything from stapling and filing to updating plans and making sure that all the correspondence done, getting all the submittals done, and just tracking everything and keeping the project organized. And that's really what a project manager does, and that's where a person gets their best training as a project engineer. And from there, you either become a project manager, or you can become an estimator any time in this zone, because actually from designer you can become an estimator, and then, as Jay said, you would go through the program, and we give quite extensive training in estimating. Again, I touch on here. We actually have a planning manager too, which is more into the project coordinators on the larger projects, especially hospitals, where we do a lot of management of coordination, because we'll get into things that nobody really thinks about too much, like door hardware and how that works with the security system, and making sure everybody is on the same page so they don't install a door and a latch system where, you know, it's an egress, so you have to have an exit for it, and there's a lot of planning that goes into it, so you wind up talking to the different divisions, whether it be the architect, the door hardware person, the security people, and then the owner's operation to make sure it all works together. But so our project coordinators are really deeply involved with how the job is, how the building's going to function when it's done.
So, beginning the estimate process. So it begins on the left-hand side. There's the project manager and/or estimator. You review and distribute the request for proposal. It comes in many different areas. It could come to a marketing group, it could come to there, it could come to estimating, it could come to the project manager, it could come to an owner of the company, so, you know, whatever avenue that path that thing takes. Then it gets handed off, and somebody reviews the specifications in the contract. We give the contract off to our company lawyer to make sure that there's nothing buried in there that's going to come back and bite us later on. Specifications, you're going to look for alternates for the project, any special breakouts that they might have. They might want to know that building A is this much money, and building B is this much money for accounting purposes. Organize your documentation. We make a book, a 3-ring binder for every project that we work on. So it's correspondence of our own, correspondence with the general contractor, the engineer, the architect, specifications, quotes, any questions we might have from subcontractors. So we do that both like in a book, like I said, and then we also store it on our server. So there's always a hard copy and an electronic copy somewhere. Provide input and design for schematic development. If that's the type of project that you're looking at the time, then you get the design group involved. Give them as much information as you can. Set up the estimate. So we go through, like I said earlier, we use AccuBid. Go through, we put all the drawings in, we build a light fixture schedule, we build all the distribution, put any special comments in there, you know, like fire alarm might need to be all in conduit. It might not have to be all in conduit. Do we need a nurse call system? Is that by the owner? Things like that. Put the drawings in, alternates in, any special breakdowns when the bid is due. Once you get everything really set up, then you can send out for quotes. We go to pretty much the major suppliers in town: Viking, Gray Bar, Warner, Border States, everybody. So we send that out. We try to give them a pretty fair warning. It's a large job. We may not have all of our information at the time. So we'll send out the light fixture schedule, for example. There's 50 different lights, and it might take us 2 days to count them. We can at least get that to them, and they can get it in front of their rep that they buy from and say, hey, Parsons is looking at this job. Keep an eye out for it. Their counts will come later, but you might want to start digging into this and talking to the factory. Identify and enter labor rates. This is a separate tab for us. Every local has its own labor rate, and then every company, by the time you get overhead and markup and fringes and all that, every job is different. So we enter that into the estimating system. Perform our takeoff, so like we call it circles and squares. Your footages, quantities of things, you know, put that in there. We write it, everybody does it differently. Some people use takeoff sheets. We write it on the drawings because that's one less piece of paper that you have to lose at the end of the day. So if you write, I have 10 type A's on here, as you count them off, then you're good to go. You try to have it on another piece of paper on the side, you might lose it. It might get rolled up another set of plans. Somebody could come and take it off your desk or spill coffee on it or whatever.
I think also when we do that, you know, we'll do our tab sheet right on the drawings. It allows us to come back if there's an addendum to one of the drawings, then your takeoff's right on that sheet, and you can make the changes right there, and you can track what's going on, or you don't have to follow through with takeoff sheets and try to change your summaries and make all those alterations, because we like to follow, and then we post the addendum right on the drawings too as we do those. And then if we are doing, as I say, one of these checks for or like the number of light fixtures per square foot in a hospital. You know, we usually run around 40 square feet, maybe 35. And if one of the sheets comes up to be at 60, well, then we know which one it is. And now we can go to that sheet, look at the counts, and we can do a recount and see if we've got an error or not, or if there's some anomaly with that sheet, if it's a storage space or something to be finished later. But we always like to keep all the takeoff right on the drawings. It's a lot easier to check and to follow up with the estimator.
Then you'll receive your quotes back from your vendors, your fire alarm contractors, nurse call contractors, teledata, all that. The important thing about getting your quotes back is if it's not a design build job, I have the tendency that no matter what job I'm working on, if it's design build, design assist, plan spec, I tell them that I want a unit cost for my light fixtures, because you're never gonna lighting that's the animal you're always going to get back, that you do not get your own light fixture counts back. And I don't want Joe Blow Electric, I don't want his counts, I want my counts. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But I'm not going to take it on, that this guy was right, and then my fixture packages. It's not typically going to be drastic, but it could be, as far as the difference in price. Switchgear is another important one. Make sure that you go through it and they have all your panels and they have all your transformers that if it's supposed to be copper bus, it's copper bus. If aluminum bus is allowed, they have that covered in there. Some people will put loose bill of material like disconnects and starters in there. You need to be aware of that because our system prices those. So you need to know that that could be a possible area that you double up on at the end of the day when you're putting in your final number. Verify commodity pricing, pipe, wire, couplings, connectors, things like that. Copper's going down now, but a few months ago it was an issue, and it could be an issue tomorrow. We don't know. But I always put some sort of disclaimer in there that your price is based on copper at this date at $2.50 a pound or whatever it is.
404.
Or $4. Yeah, $2.50 is a long time ago.
Yes, I do have a question for you. Do you guys add the circuit breakers to the gear quote, or you have them separate?
They're included.
They're included.
So if you have a schedule, those vendors should have that included in their number. If I'm looking at a job and I don't know what I'm going to have, I'll just say fill that panel 2/3 full of 20 amp singles or fill it full of breakers. At the end of the day, you're not going to be off by that much.
Do you have to spec the breakers out then, like we were doing yesterday?
We're doing short circuit analysis, so there's a difference between, if it's a 35K breaker
Right.
versus 45.
Sometimes they'll ask that. I mean, depending on what area of the country you're in, those vendors pretty much know what.
I might step into that a little bit because we will do that on a design build project where we're bidding it, and we don't have a design yet. So like I'll be doing a schematic estimate or a lot of different names for it, but when I do one of the estimates on the architectural sheets without anything shown, we usually do have our design department draw up a riser, but then we will be talking about what the breakers are and what the interrupting ratings are, because again, I'm kind of familiar with the issue, so I can kind of pick out what we're going to use, whether it's going to be a fusible lineup or a breaker lineup, and then depending on service size and where it's located, what the interrupting is. If you're downtown, your interrupting's got to be way up, 100 to 200,000. Whereas, if you're out in the suburbs, there's probably a 65,000 or 50,000 available. But downtown in the loop, they're all tied together. There's an awful you have to have some pretty expensive equipment to clear faults.
So once you go through your commodity pricing, then you conduct a review meeting. It's always good to have an extra set of eyes. So whether it's another estimator, our rule is with a project manager, a division manager, somebody that's going to be involved with that project, that they're going to take ownership of that job at the end of the day. They buy into the fact that the estimate is okay. They believe that it's a good estimate. They believe that they can make that amount of profit on the job. Things like that. So
before you take that, I think I would like to say one thing about that conduct the review, because that's one of the things I get called in on very often, and what we try to do is, you know, we don't want to make that review until the estimate's done, and if the bid's due at 1, we might be doing the review at 12 o'clock, 12:30, and this is where the consistency of how the estimates are done. You know, we use certain colors for takeoff, of lighting, another one for power, another one for fire alarm, so that we can track all of this as we go, and then we put estimates together under in certain categories, so that, again, when we do this review, we're looking for opportunities where we think we maybe can cut the labor. Maybe we find another way of doing something that is more competitive to give us an advantage. And the other thing is to make damn sure we don't have a mistake, because one mistake can cost you 10 jobs of profits, you know. And so that's where the real thing in the estimating is the consistency of how it's done, so that we can really look through it quick, because you're going to want to look at that in a 15-minute period and draw some conclusions and put a markup on it and get to it.
Types of bids, plan and spec, you know, come from your engineering houses. Design build, and then conceptual. So design build, like I said, you could have a narrative and a set of drawings with nothing else on them. It's just the footprint of the building. But you have an intent to what the owner wants at the end of the day. Conceptual, bar napkin estimates. So I might just call you and say, hey, off the cuff, I need to know what a 60,000 square foot office building is going to cost for a rough idea. You could have those 6 pieces of paper again, and that's it. And you have to come up with that. That's when you tie back into history and what your knowledge is of a job like that. That averages sheet that we do, like I said, we have it tracked down in every market segment: hospitals, office buildings, data centers, sports and entertainment, hotels. That way we can go back that, and it's a really quick reference that, okay, is this supposed to be $35 a square foot? It all depends. I mean, are they heating it with electric, or are they heating with gas, or what are they doing? So, plan and spec, review the plans, all the notes, drawings, like I said earlier, all of the drawings, architectural, mechanical, civil, systems drawings. Front end specs, that's where we're going to find, you know, a special bid breakdown, alternates, contract documents. Electrical and systems, pretty self-explanatory. If you're doing that, you want to look at those. Mechanical, sometimes you might have to search for the mechanical drawings a little bit on who's providing starters, who's providing VFDs. It might not be clear, and I've had jobs where one says the other one is providing it, and that one says the other one's providing it, and then you get the job and nobody has it. Scan for all electrical requirements. You know, on the systems part of it, it might refer you back to just basically the conduit and wiring methods. That's what you're supposed to follow for a conduit method for those low voltage systems. Look for holes. Kind of a design build conceptual thing, and you can find them on plan spec drawings too. But are they missing lights anywhere? Are they missing mechanical anywhere? Any fire alarm, life safety things. Fire alarm, life safety, I like to rely back to my fire alarm subcontractors for, and they have that knowledge better than I do. But when I go back to my tracking spreadsheet again for quantities of things per square foot, that's on there. So you can get a pretty good feel of, did they miss the boat on here? Did they need to add some more things? And you can bring that up and say, hey, you know, our price is based on your drawings, but we think that you're missing some things. Call out what those things are and give a value to it. Sometimes that helps you get the job too. Get clarification. Report the holes. Overlap any discrepancies to the general contractor. You may think that you have to provide housekeeping pads for switchgear, and they have it in their contract. Get direction from the general contractor where they want you to go. I mean, some general contractor might have a different angle that they want you to take than another one. So that gets to be when you have multiple contractors working on a project that you're bidding that job to, you could end up having 5 different estimates. And then clarify your bid. If there's something that you're not going to include because you don't think it's right, nobody would give you an answer, just make sure you call it out. Design build, limited drawings, give them a scope narrative, power generator, lighting systems. So what I do is we always give a quantity. So I'll just dump it in a spreadsheet. I'll pull it out. I'll stick it in the Word document, and we've included 10,000 2x4s and 500 recessed cans and 300 receptacles. Just things like that. Spell out what you have, because when you get to jobs like this, it's apples and oranges for that general contractor to try to figure out. And you want to put your best foot forward to give them the best project at the end of the day. Develop a budget based on the information you have. Again, clarify in a scope letter with quantities, and then historical data again out of our averages sheet on past history.
When you would develop a budget, you're talking about like for the roughing stage of it, or like for the lighting aspect of it, or what? I mean, what do you?
The whole job. I
The
mean,
whole project. One of the things when he's, we give a quantity of light fixtures, but what we also do is we'll do lighting calcs, and we'll establish the counts, and we'll go through and figure out how many exit signs we think it's going to take. We'll, whether it be in offices, saying there's going to be 3 receptacles, 4 receptacles, a switch. What are you going to have in every office? How many teledata outlets? And we'll go through and figure out what it takes to do the building. So basically, we almost do a rough design of the whole thing. There's going to be follow-up clarifications later on if we get the project in. But we go off whatever data they give us. Sometimes they give us very little. Typically, like I get a call to provide either a design build or a conceptual estimate on a casino. The people don't really even know what it is that they need, because they're not the experts in design, but they do know they want to build a casino and soon. So that's why they go our path to go design build, and because we can be hitting the ground in 2 weeks and design it while we're building it. And a lot of times with the casino world, getting it open 30 days earlier might pay for construction in those 30 days. So, time is of the essence, and they really want to lean on contractors that understand the work. And then, that's one of our expertise is the casino world. And data centers are similar, where it's one of the things that we do a little bit of design build on, and we bring expertise to them. But data centers are really based on reliability. With the everybody orders more online, where everything else is kind of dying down in the marketplace. The data center business has still been picking up, at 20% a year, and it was probably at 30 a little bit ago. And it's probably going to go up again here when the market starts to move. And you see that as being a big growth market. Anyway, conceptual estimating. Jay said sometimes that's a bar napkin. Well, it can be. We are asked, what does it take, for electrical for a factory? Well, and I'll just get on the phone or meet with people, and we'll start talking about what's going on in each area. So we may have a research area, and we might square foot the pricing and say the research areas usually run around $20 a square foot. The office areas are going to be 12, and depending on the timing and what they're trying to use the estimate for will be how far we break it down. So we'll move from conceptual to design build, where we get all the quantities. If the financing is set and the people are trying to use it for actual building and not just getting a rough estimate. Usually the conceptual is getting an idea of whether it's going to be a $4 million or a $5 million electrical. So, and then we try to give as much information as we can of how we arrived at our numbers. We usually give them a pretty intricate spreadsheet, but a lot of it's done on Excel at that point, and not with AccuBid. So we'll show what we have in for fire alarm, we'll show what we have in for branch power, we'll show what we have in for teledata, but we'll give them a breakdown of maybe 20 items that are in the building, how we got to the total, but it won't have the counts.
When you estimate a job, when you get a bid and estimate the job, and you you have done that, are you also doing the construction side and constructing the electrical, or at that point you're only concentrating on design? For example, you say that you're just talking about 4 million or 5 million, some big amount of money.
Well, from
So your company
we'll do the construction as well.
Construction is getting the same job estimated. Or
Yep.
you complete the job as well.
We complete the job as well. Different jobs around the country, we try to partner with people. They know that area better than we do, and then it mitigates our risk. So we work hand in hand with them as well. But in our estimating department, we'll estimate the job. We do that review meeting, and then if we get the project, there's pre-construction involved, so we're kind of pre-construction at the same time, and we'll work with like Dave and whoever his PM is going to be on the project. Say, kind of a last. Okay, we did this 2 months ago, and this was our thought. Now you better go order these lights. You better order this switchgear because it's going to go up in a month. So we work like that, but we will do the estimate, and then we also do the construction.
So our process, is we get the jobs in, the bid, estimating, bids them, usually with the input from the project manager that would get assigned the project should we get it. And then management reviews it. When we turn the bid in, we get the job, and we usually have a turnover meeting with estimating to go through the estimate and explain all the details, where they got the bids, who they thought was low on lighting, generators, distribution, etc. And then it's the project manager's job to purchase the material, get it scheduled, submitted, and to run the project. We do work all over the country. I think we're in 17 or 18 states right now working. I'm not sure what our number is this year, but we are the 22nd largest in the country last year anyway. And the CEMA rating this year changes every year, but up or down a little bit. So we do between $200 and $300 million in construction a year. So this year it's probably be closer to 300.
Dave, what Mr. Rebet probably mentioned is, do you do estimating service and similar service to others?
No.
No.
Okay, that's what.
So discuss it with the team. We take it off by drawing an area for second, third, fourth floor, penthouse, garage, site, whatever phases. That's typical where we will put our alternates in. If we have our base bid, and then an alternate is to not build the space out and just have it as a shell, things like that. Or they may want to add a generator. And then system, we do our distribution, our lighting, and our branch, mechanical, teledata, cable TV, fire alarm, pretty much the whole gamut. Full takeoff is the majority of the estimates that we do. Spreadsheets, when you have that call and they need a price in 5 minutes, you can sometimes do that. Pad and pencil. If you're a one-man band, you might have that. But I don't do pen and pencil. So estimating software, we have AccuBid, McCormick, MC Squared, CAD Live, which is part of AccuBid. Live Count is part of AccuBid, and then the on-center software. So the CAD Live and the Live Count, CAD Live pretty self-explanatory. It comes out of AutoCAD, dumps right into AccuBid. Live Count allows us to take off TIFFs and PDFs. And then on center, same thing, a TIFF or a PDF. That TIFF works pretty well. At the end of it generates a spreadsheet. And if you know what you're going to put in for material dollars and labor, you can just dump it in there. But the few people that use that, they take that just because you can count everything and you can give it its own symbol and everything, like all of that. They can just take that and then they just dump it and they start entering it into AccuBid. But Live Count, CAD Live we haven't really touched in a long time. Live count works great because it just ties right into the system. You just click and measure and you're done. So full takeoff, report on takeoff sheets or drawings. Like I said, we do drawings. So our color code that we use, all motors and equipment, elevators, special things like that, are done in pink. Devices are yellow. All of your low voltage systems are green, except fire alarm, that's purple. Distribution is orange, light fixtures are blue, and then all your branch wiring and your feeders are done in red. It just makes, at the end of the day, it makes it easier. I mean, some people like to count every light fixture a different color. Well, unless you have that box of 64 crayons, it works out great. But it makes that when you look at a drawing, it jumps out at you, and you know, okay, these are lights. And if somebody is sick one day, they can come in and they know exactly where that person left off. I mean, I had to do it yesterday to finish a takeoff for a guy. So that's the reason you use a color code. Accuracy problems. Nobody's perfect. I mean, if you don't know something, ask the question or put something into it that you think makes sense. Make a note. When you do the review, you can hash out if you think it takes 4 hours or 2 hours or 20 or what. Poor system of tracking and transfer of info, stress of time constraints, and then the wrong scale. Scale obviously is important because you got to have as much conduit as you really need to do the job. We always measure a doorway just to make sure if we don't actually have that scale in the drawings.
There's a lot of scale errors that happen. It's surprising. The engineer puts the wrong scale on the drawing. The drawing is reproduced at a different size than what it says. I've seen it all. I've seen a detail drawn in the middle of a gym, gave a scale, and an estimator took it off to be that that's where the room was. And it turns out that the scale of the drawing was actually 32nd, and the detail of the room was a quarter. We're listed about 3/4 of the conduit. Funny things happen, but they aren't so funny.
And they cost you money.
It costs a lot of money, and then you wind up doing it. We finish every job we fail. So we never turned a project down after we got it, so I mean, that's a decision each company has to make. But it's important that you are seen as a reliable bidder.
Quotes, said this a few different times already. Gear, lighting, generator, fire alarm, low voltage, every quote that you need to get on the project. And then the only true estimate is a fixture and device count. I mean, it's not just pulling something out of thin air that you think that this job's going to cost $1 million. The only way you can really know that it's $1 million is if you have a takeoff on it, and that it's an accurate takeoff. Spreadsheets, historical data, type of project, and then we break that down by, the office building, distribution of square foot, and emergency systems of square foot, and light fixtures of square foot. You can use RS means. That's kind of our last resort if we have to.
The RS means for us, sometimes we'll be looking at it because the owners look at it. And we might want to look at what they think something's going to cost, just so we're prepared to discuss it a little more. If we're off of that regular takeoff, we're not going to adjust to the RS means. It's not a very accurate book.
Is
But-
that like a national average
Yeah,
for outlet or
It
something?
is, exactly. And RS means is, they talk about it a lot for what it costs to do an office building, what it costs to do a receptacle, what it costs to do a 2x4. But there's so many factors that can come into that with different buildings, But a lot of people look at it when they're looking at change orders, and they're going to start questioning things. So.
Pad and pencil.
I think someone
That's
put that
big.
in there as a joke because I'm kind of old. And, when I started in this business, it was done on spreadsheets, and there were computers. But,
So we've pretty much touched on that. I mean, there might be that day where you do have to make up a number on a bar napkin at lunch or something, but all based on history. Team review, like I said, project manager, estimator, designer. Review for accuracy, so this averages spreadsheet that we have. Experience, your team, don't assume.
And I'd say this one right here, know what you do not know. To me, that is the number one thing that people get in trouble with when they start guessing and they don't understand things and they pass it up. Make a list of things you don't know to talk to other people, because there's probably an expert within the company, or at least you can identify that this is something you got to figure out. This is where the biggest mistakes are made in the industry, is people don't know what they don't know. And, it's a funny statement, but it's very true. I would rather be working with a stupid person who knows he's stupid than somebody who's moderately smart that doesn't know what he doesn't know, because you'll get in a lot more trouble.
And with that, I mean, that knowing what you know is the best tool you can have. Because you might turn a bid in, or you may have to go to a scope review with the general contractor or the owner, and they're going to say, well, why is your number this? And you might think you're really high, you're really low. You might think you're really low and you're really high. It could be it could be a lot of different factors. It could be a customer that you've dealt with for years and years, and they're bringing in a new guy off the street that doesn't know, and you know that it takes 25% extra labor to be inside that building, and that other guy doesn't. You might know that they want all conduit on a certain system, or an MC cable isn't allowed, and the other guy doesn't know that. So that's how you need to set yourself apart from everybody else. Review the specifications, wire methods, everything like that. Review the sheet by estimate breakdown. Contractor requirements, like I said, the general contractor might have a different way of doing it than the next general contractor. Review your quotes for completeness. Make sure the counts are the same. The generators, they have all the generators, they have the right amount of transfer switches. Stress on bid day, it can be. Plan specs, probably the worst bid day job to have, because letting people think that their numbers are going to get shopped out, and you get it 5 minutes before the bid is due. Hopefully you got a bill of material beforehand. So that gets to be a kind of a big deal, especially if there's different breakdowns that they need to have, and you're at the last minute, you can make a mistake. But push on trying to get those numbers early as much as you possibly can. Any questions?
No questions?
There's gotta be one question there.
What is that on-center live count thing?
So OnCenter is a program that I haven't dealt with it that much. I've played with it a little bit. You take the drawings, you pull them into a file, and you make a job name, and it's really, you're limited on what you can have to count, but you can make a circle as big as you want to make it, whatever color you want, a rectangle, everything else. So all you do is you use it to count and measure. So you can make a type A 1x4 fixture blue and make it somewhat look like it's 4 feet long, and just snap it over all of them, and it'll count, and it'll generate that into a spreadsheet for you.
It's all done on the line,
On
on
the
the screen, so you're not using paper or anything. And as you click on them, if you're doing them individually, they'll change color, so you can see what you've taken off, whether it be branch and how you do things. So when you're done with the sheet, everything should be colored, and then you should have it all taken off. Yeah, and then you can go back and you'll see what color you use. There's some variations of that, but
And then
that's what it
wires
is.
and everything for each unit piping.
you have to, it's not that detailed.
Usually
You would have to say
averages.
it's like a 3/4 inch pipe with 3 number 12s, and you make that a certain line thickness and a certain color, so you can track it. But it'll tell you at the end of the sheet that you have 3,000 feet of 3/4 inch conduit with 3 number 12s. Then you know you go put that at the estimating system. It does generate a spreadsheet on the back end too that you can just go in and you can put material dollars to it and labor dollars to it. Live count is Activid's version. It's got some limitations, but it's got some, and so does OnCenter. But live count is Acubid's brand that is the same deal, but it just dumps it once you click on it. It puts it right in the guesstimating system.
How old is your company, and what was the biggest project you estimated, and how many employees do you have?
Our company is roughly 80 years old, 81, something like that. Our largest project we're doing right now is a data center that's $67 million electrical, I think is what it is. Number of employees, we're running about 700-800 electricians and another 150 inside, 200 depending on how we count things. So we're close to 1,000 total.
That's a big company.
Yeah.
I never knew that.
Our work pretty much centers in commercial, industrial, and we don't do much residential, or almost none. We were doing a lot of multi-housing, but since there aren't any being built, that department's dropped from 5 people down to 1 person part-time, finishing off a few condos that we built 3 years ago. But we tend to move in and out of markets as they come and go. We're doing a lot of a few wind towers, but that market is really depreciated. We did a lot of ethanol around the country, and that's not happening anymore. So right now we're getting into a little more mining, and I think that's going to kick up, and I think we're going to do a lot more mining as we expanded our operations in northern Minnesota and Phoenix.
You still use AutoCAD?
Yes, yeah, AutoCAD and Revit are tied together, and we're using both.
So you have guys running in CAD and then guys on
Absolutely,
or
yeah.
maybe both?
Because a lot of the Revit, we won't use the Revit on everything. It's a little time consuming yet to bring that model where we don't need it. But on the larger projects, if we start doing coordination at the Gopher Stadium, we do that in Revit, and the other disciplines, mechanical, are using it too, so it kind of drives the model that everybody's on the same platform.
Yeah, but I like what you always say about if you don't know something and you guess and you have a couple of adjectives that you use to describe it. You want to say something about that? If you're trying to take up something that you don't know, and you have a wild guess.
Oh.
When you talk about these, or
Well, we do identify it. It says WAG in the estimate. It may mean that somebody else should be looking at it. That's what it is, a wild ass guess. What we do as we go through the estimate, and if we use that term, it does mean that it probably needs a little more looking at down the road, or at least you should know that it was a guess and the guy doing it didn't really know the answer. But so we usually review those.
Are they usually interns?
No,
Greenways.
well,
I do wags.
everybody does WAGs because you don't know what they're talking about, and perhaps the guy that drew it didn't know. And in a lot of cases, the guy that drew it didn't know. They will put notes on, verifying the field, paint to match. There's all sorts of notes that people put on drawings where they try to get out of figuring it out and try to cover it by note. And then all you can really do is throw money at it and allow it to think that you've got a solution. Well, that addressed your question specifically, but yeah.
There's the scientific one too, they always use to say.
The what?
There's the WAG and the scientific WAG.
Oh. Well, we have a lot of different terms. Yeah.
Any question guys for Dave?
I always appreciate you guys having us out here. And I think the market's going to come back. The job market should be getting better this year. It's going to be hot till maybe the end of summer, but if I knew, then I would be in a different business too, probably. Anyway, thank you. having us.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Dave is gonna hang around for a second, if anybody wants to talk to him individually, guys.